All right, so welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're really diving into something fascinating. The global shift in education policy. It's all about moving towards like a more holistic approach
Mm.
to health and well-being.
And especially how that plays out, in physical education.
Exactly. And get this, we're using excerpts from chapter 4 of Physical Education and Well-Being.
Written by T. Lynch.
Yeah, by T. Lynch. The book takes us all over the world, showing us all these different ways people are approaching this concept. So, buckle up.
Yeah, it's quite the journey.
So can holistic health and physical education really, improve student well-being? And if it can, how? That's what we're trying to figure out today.
It's a big question for sure, and, one that more and more countries are trying to wrap their heads around.
Right.
And what's so interesting to me is that this isn't just about, throwing in a couple health lessons during gym class.
Oh, it's bigger than that.
It's about, truly understanding how much our physical, mental, and social well-being are all connected.
Yeah.
And then how education can, help all of those things grow.
Absolutely. Okay, so the chapter starts off talking about Australia.
Oh, Australia, they've always been kind of ahead of the game.
They really have. They've been seen as a leader in this whole thing for about, 25 years now?
Something like that, yeah.
And they have this thing called the HPE framework.
Which stands for, just to remind folks,
Yeah.
health, well-being, and physical education.
Right, right. And they've been slowly rolling it out in their schools. And here's the kicker.
There's always a catch.
Always. Well, it seems even when you have a great plan, putting it into practice everywhere takes time and, well, a lot of continuous effort.
Totally. And the data really backs that up.
Yeah.
If you look at the 2022 PISO results, specifically at things like, sense of belonging and ease of making friends at school,
Those are big ones.
they are. And there's a gap there between what Australia is aiming for and what's really happening for a lot of students. It's like, for example, 18% of Australian students said they felt lonely at school. That's a pretty serious number, especially when you think about how much they focus on well-being.
It's almost like a wake-up call, isn't it? Just because it's written down doesn't mean it's happening in every classroom in every school.
Exactly. So Australia's experience is kind of a warning sign for everyone else. Even with the best intentions, making this shift is hard.
Yeah, it's complex. So it's not just about having the policy. It's about what's actually going on,
That's the heart of it. We need to go beyond those policy documents and really look at how these ideas are being used in real life.
Okay, that makes sense. So Australia might be a pioneer, but this whole shift towards holistic HPE is happening everywhere. It's global.
It really is. And the OECD, you know them, they did this report called Future of Education 2030.
I've heard of it, yeah.
They looked at 18 different countries and regions, and what they found is pretty fascinating.
Oh, I'm all ears. What are other countries doing? Are they doing a better job than Australia? Spill the tea.
Well, a lot of countries are starting to include health education in their physical education classes.
Okay, so it's like integrated.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
becoming pretty common in places like Canada.
Exactly.
China, Japan, Korea, even Wales is getting on board.
Right.
It really shows you this is a global trend.
It's really catching on. But there must be some hiccups along the way, right?
Oh, absolutely. Big hiccups. The report also talks about the challenges, and they're not small. Even when the curriculum changes, on paper,
Right.
teachers often run into roadblocks, like structural problems, personal beliefs, cultural things.
Yeah.
It's not an easy change to make.
So they're facing the same problems that Australia is dealing with, those implementation issues?
Yeah, in a lot of cases. Take China, for example.
Okay.
They've put a ton of effort into changing their PE classes to include this new, more holistic approach.
That's promising.
It does, but there's a study from 2013 by Jen, and it found that a lot of Chinese teachers, although they liked the idea,
Yeah.
they just felt like they weren't ready to actually do it. They were saying things like, I think it's good, I just don't know how.
That says a lot. If teachers aren't given the tools and the help to make this new vision happen, even the best plan in the world won't work.
You hit the nail on the head. Things like professional development, ongoing support, having access to the right resources, those are all key.
Makes sense.
But China's also interesting because they're not just focusing on what's happening in schools. They have this Healthy China 2030 initiative, and it shows just how serious they are about this.
Oh, right. President Xi Jinping has made health a central focus across the board, hasn't he?
He has. It's a huge undertaking. They're realizing that health and well-being are affected by so many things, not just what happens in a classroom.
Yeah.
So while they might be struggling with some things in schools, Their overall approach is definitely one to keep an eye on.
It sounds like there's a lot we can learn from both the good stuff and the challenges these early adopters are going through. Now, I know we've just scratched the surface here. There are so many ways countries are approaching this. Tell me, what else are we seeing out there? What are some of the different ways countries are tackling HPE?
Well, some countries, like Singapore and Japan, they've kind of gone with this approach of like weaving health education into what they already do for PE.
Oh, okay.
It's a lot more
Well,
integrated.
yeah, that makes sense. Like acknowledging that you can't really separate physical health from all that mental and emotional well-being stuff, you
Right.
know? It's
Exactly.
all connected. So what about, are there countries that do things differently?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Some countries, like Finland comes to mind, they keep health and PE as, separate subjects,
Uh-huh.
but they're really deliberate about making sure that whole child development thing is woven into everything they do in education.
Interesting.
It's not just about like what's taught in those specific classes.
Right.
It's part of how they think about teaching and learning in general.
That's pretty progressive. It's like they're thinking about the whole kid, not just grades. I like that.
Yeah.
Now, are there countries that are like behind in this whole shift?
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
The chapter mentions places like England, Germany, France, Italy.
Hmm?
They've always been more about that traditional performance-based PE.
Oh,
It's
okay.
like they're stuck in the old way of thinking,
Yeah.
where PE's all about fitness tests and competing.
Ah, yeah. So it's like they're missing the bigger picture of how getting active can help with, well, everything. Social skills, resilience, even self-esteem.
Totally. And the data kind of backs that up, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The chapter looks at some PISA data, comparing countries that directly link PE and health in their curriculum to those that don't. And there were some pretty interesting patterns.
Okay, give me the good stuff. What kind of patterns are we talking about?
Well, those countries that haven't made that PE health connection,
Yeah,
they tend to score lower on those PISA indicators for well-being.
those ones we talked about before.
The same ones, yeah.
Okay.
Their students say they feel less like they belong at school,
Mm.
have a harder time making friends, and just generally aren't as happy with their lives.
That's a pretty strong connection, although you're right, we have to remember, just because things happen together doesn't mean one causes the other.
Oh, absolutely. Correlation doesn't equal causation.
Right, right. There could be lots of other things going on. But it does make you think that maybe, just maybe, this whole holistic approach could be really good for kids, like for their well-being overall.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like a magic solution, like link PE and health, and suddenly all problems are solved.
Right.
But it does seem like countries that get how the things are connected, they end up creating schools that feel more supportive and inclusive.
It sounds like they're saying, hey, well-being is about more than just being physically fit. It's about feeling like you belong, like you're supported, that people value you in the school community.
You got it.
Now, I'm curious about those countries that are kind of lagging behind. Are any of them trying to, catch up?
Some are, but it's slow. England, for example, they recently made health education a required thing,
Oh, okay.
which is, a step in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like they're finally admitting you can't really have well-being if you're only focusing on the physical stuff and ignoring the mental and emotional side.
Yeah, it's all connected. That is encouraging, though. It seems like even the systems that have been doing things the same way for ages are starting to realize this is important.
Yeah.
But like we've been saying, just changing the rules isn't enough.
It's all about how they actually do it.
Yeah,
The implementation is key.
totally. It makes you wonder, what's going to happen in England? Will this actually change things in classrooms, in the real world?
Right.
Or will it just be something they check off a list and then forget about?
That's the big question.
Yeah.
And it brings us back to what this whole deep dive is really about.
What's that?
Just having a policy isn't enough. You need action, you need people actually doing it, and you need everyone to really be committed to making schools a place where well-being matters.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And that's what will determine if this whole global shift towards holistic HPE actually makes a difference in kids' lives and in the future of, well, our societies.
Exactly. Now, before we finish up, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about those PISA results.
Okay.
It really got me thinking. Those countries that have a more integrated approach to HPE, they seem to be doing a better job when it comes to student well-being.
They do. It makes you think about our own communities, doesn't it? Like, where do we stand when it comes to promoting health and well-being in our schools?
That's such an important question, and it's one the author brings up right at the end of the chapter. He asks, how many people in your community do you think would say they feel like they belong here?
Wow.
It's a powerful question because it makes us look beyond the data and the trends and really see what's happening right where we live.
I love that. It's so easy to get caught up in the big picture, but real change starts locally, in our own backyards. 100%. It starts with each of us asking, are we making our communities places where everyone feels valued, like they belong, where they're supported and connected?
Yeah,
Are we building that sense of belonging, not just in schools, but everywhere?
those are some big questions.
Yeah.
And they go way beyond just what's happening in education.
They do. It's about understanding that how well individuals are doing and how well the community is doing are totally tied together.
Yeah.
You can't have one without the other. And that's what makes this whole conversation about holistic HPE so crucial. It's not just about changing gym class. It's about creating a culture where well-being is at the center of everything.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that if we want healthier, happier communities, it starts with us.
Yeah.
Like each of us doing what we can to make well-being a priority, in our own little corners of the world. And we've talked about so much in this deep dive, from Australia being like the trailblazers
Yeah.
to China's big plans with that Healthy China 2030 thing. It's clear this whole holistic HPE thing is going global, but it's not going to be easy. What really gets me excited is that this isn't just about like changing a lesson plan here or there. It's way bigger.
Mhm.
It's about changing how we think.
Like a whole mindset shift.
Exactly. We talked about Finland and Sweden, right?
Mm.
How they've woven in those values of social justice and equity. They get it. Well-being is tied to fairness,
Mm.
to a society that's just.
It's almost like they're saying education can change individuals, sure, but it can also reshape our communities. Pretty powerful stuff. But like we've seen, there are going to be bumps in the road.
Oh, yeah.
Implementation is everything, and it takes everyone being on board. Teachers, policymakers, families, even the whole community.
For sure. It's about giving teachers the tools they need, the
Yeah.
training, the resources, all of it. It's about schools and families actually talking to each other. And let's be real, there's no one right way to do this.
Oh, absolutely.
Every community is different.
Right.
Different cultures, different challenges.
Makes sense.
Um,
So where do we go from here? What are the questions we should be asking in our own communities?
I think we need to have some honest conversations about what well-being actually means, like where we live, what do our kids need, what do we already have to help them? How can we make schools a place where every single child feels supported? These are the things we need to figure out if we want this global HPE thing to actually work, not just be a fad,
It's a call to action. I like that. But before we wrap up, there's one more thing from the chapter that really stuck with me.
I'm curious, what is it?
The author asks this question: what can we do to make sure schools are places where everyone feels like they belong and where everyone's well-being is a priority? It's like he's challenging us to do more than just talk about these trends, to actually be part of the solution.
He's right. It's a good reminder that this isn't just something happening out there.
Mm-hmm.
We all have a part to play if we want to create a future where all kids have the chance to thrive.
So listeners, as you go about your day-to-day, keep that question in mind. Think about your own role in your community. What can you do to support young people? It doesn't have to be huge.
Maybe it's volunteering at a school. Maybe it's speaking up for changes in policies. Maybe it's just having real conversations with the kids in your life, asking them how they're doing, really listening.
Exactly. Every little bit makes a difference. Together, we can make well-being more than just a buzzword. We can make it real for everyone.
And that's it for our deep dive today. We hope you enjoyed exploring the world of holistic HPE with us.
Remember, knowledge is great, but it's what we do with it that really matters. So go out there and be the change you want to see.
And until next time, keep diving deep.